Welcome back. This video is on Anglo-Saxon England between the 9th and the 10th century. During this period, the Danes started arriving from the continent of Europe and they destroyed Northumbria. Northumbria, which was influenced by Aidan and his followers, was the center of education. It was the center of learning. There were a lot of schools, libraries and monasteries in Northumbria. When the Danes attacked Britain, they destroyed everything. Teachers and scholars were killed. Northumbrian literature was completely destroyed. Only a few fragments which were translated into the West Saxon dialect survived this conquest. And these translations were carried out by the scholars of Alfred after he had driven back the Danes. So the most important historical and literary figure of this period in Anglo-Saxon history and literature is King Alfred of Wessex. Now, with the Danish conquest of Northumbria, Anglo-Saxon poetry came to an end. And during this period, prose literature began. Prose literature begins with Alfred the Great of Wessex. King Alfred, he was born in 848 and he passed away in 901. He was the king of Wessex from 871 to 899. Wessex was a Saxon kingdom in southwest England. King Alfred defeated the Danes. And after defeating the Danes via the Treaty of Wedmore in 878, peace was established in England. So his next mission was to learn Latin himself, and then he preserved native literature and developed English prose. Alfred's achievements. Alfred set up courts to implement law and order. He also built the first English naval fleet in order to fight away the Danes on the coastal areas. So Alfred was able to establish law and order and peace in England. And he patiently began the task of educating the people. Courts were established to ensure that laws were implemented. He brought in teachers from Europe to lead schools in England. Till Alfred's period, education in England had been completely in Latin. He began the task of teaching English people to speak and write in English. So all the best books in other languages, they were translated into English. Every scholar was honored for the work carried out by him. And they were given the task of translating or teaching the ancient manuscripts which had been saved from the Danish attack. So, Alfred and his scholars managed to restore at least some of the available Northumbrian manuscripts into the West Saxon dialect. The important works of Alfred. First, the important works that we'll be talking about is the translations that were done by him. Orosius' Universal History and Geography. This was translated by Alfred. Shepherd's Book by Pope Gregory. This book was meant for the priests. This was also translated into English by Alfred. Then Boethius' Consolations of Philosophy. This was a book of philosophy which was very popular during the Middle Ages. This book also was translated by Alfred into English. His most important contribution, of course, is the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. And this chronicle, it recorded all the births and deaths in the West Saxon kingdom. It begins with the story of Caesar's conquest of England. It goes on to document his own period, the period when he was ruling over England. And the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle continued to be written even after Alfred's death. That means it did not stop being written when Alfred died. It continued to be written even after Alfred's death. It is an example of good English prose. And there are some beautiful songs in this, the Battle of Brunaba and the Battle of Maldon, which have been preserved in this sometime in 991. So, the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle is a very important work because it is the oldest history belonging to any modern nation written in its own language. Now, the two poems or songs that I talked about, the Battle of Brunaba and the Battle of Maldon, which were entered in 991 into the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, this happened 75 years before the Norman Conquest. The Norman Conquest happened in 1066. So, the Chronicle continued to be written even after the Norman Conquest. Anglo-Saxon Chronicle continued to be written even after the Norman Conquest. And it is a remarkable book. It is a remarkable and precious record of Anglo-Saxon life. And it is one of the greatest literary works of all time. So, with the death of Alfred, there was a decline in national life and national literature. And in the next video, I will be talking about the Norman Conquest. So, with this video, we conclude the Anglo-Saxon period. Thank you.